welcome back to the show. I am here with Skye Jatani.
Hello, Phil.
Hi, Skye. And wait, are you Christian Taylor?
Back. I am. Hi.
Christian's back.
It's been 3 weeks since the three of us have been together.
I missed you guys.
2 weeks. You couldn't make it last week.
I was gone, and then you were gone.
You were gone.
But you're always here.
Drew, and then we have...
Well, it is his podcast after all.
Well, I don't know what it turns into if I can't make it. I'm not sure what happens.
Well, I think we go on vacation.
Who sings the theme song?
We went on vacation when you couldn't make it.
You didn't sing the theme song last week.
I know. The spirit moved. The spirit moved me in a different direction.
I didn't listen to the podcast, so what happened?
It was a good one. You should listen to it. I sang about singing the theme song instead of actually singing the theme song.
Oh.
It was like one of those Russian dolls where you go in and there's another Russian doll. It was like a song within a song within a song.
Inception.
Yeah.
And the problem was that if I woke up in the second level of the song before I was awake in the first level, then I would get trapped there forever.
Oh my gosh.
Which
I'm really lost.
One of Dante's levels of hell.
So halfway through the song, Skye had to push me into a bathtub filled with water so that I would snap out of it. And then that went down 3 layers into my song, and I woke up. I said, what am I doing? Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And we've got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast. This is the whispery part. Starts right here. We'll talk to Skye and Christian, too, because she's back. And maybe a guest. Spock is here. Commander Spock here just for you. Hey, it's a podcast, so lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. These frets are so little.
You know, sometimes you're really on. And sometimes
On what?
That's a great question. Go Juice.
Christian.
Yes.
You weren't here last week because you had an audition. You had a big audition in the city.
What was it?
What'd you audition for?
Wonder Woman.
Have you seen those commercials? Yeah, actually, I already played Wonder Woman. So it wasn't for that. Have you seen the commercials with Beatrice, where Beatrice is going to pin things on her wall?
Who's Beatrice?
Who's Beatrice?
Beatrice is the Esurance commercial lady. She's about 80 years old, and she's going to pin her vacation pictures on her wall. But they're on her real wall. And her friend says, that's not how that works.
Right.
And she says, I'm unfriending you. And she goes, that's not how any of this works.
Right. I have seen those. I've seen those. I have seen those commercials.
It is one of those.
Are you Beatrice?
I am not Beatrice.
What did you audition
May.
for?
I auditioned to be May, the candy crushing lady. Yeah, my nephew told me that there's this awesome game where you crush candy. And at first I was like, so what? And then I realized, oh my gosh, how good I am at this. And then I just couldn't stop playing. And, you know, but it's really simple. It's as simple as my car insurance. I'd say 15% in 15 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you have any idea how many people auditioned for this?
Hundreds, probably.
No.
I would have to go to LA for a week and film. So when it's that big of a thing.
So did you get it?
That's kind of a big thing.
I don't know. The callbacks are next week, but it's not looking good. I still have not received a call. But, you know, you just never know.
You just never know.
They could call me
but
next
probably
week.
not.
Probably not.
How many things do you have to audition for
There is a ratio.
to land one?
It's usually like 25 to 30 auditions to 1. Usually, but sometimes a lot.
Wow.
More.
Do you ever just want to give up?
I used to when I first started out. I used to, and then you do an audition and you forget it ever happened. Oftentimes now I'm to the place where they'll call me and say, "Hey, guess what? You booked this job," and I was like, "Did I audition for that?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just kind of move on.
You have a look and a voice that is so like middle America.
Yes.
That I'm sure advertisers. There's a lot of options for you out there.
Thank you.
I could only advertise for a handful of things.
Yeah.
Which would be like...
That is so not true.
Oh, sure it is.
In fact, almost every audition that I get, it's asked for ethnically ambiguous people.
come on.
No, I'm serious.
I look like ethnically ambiguous villain.
You could you could play like
you could be a doctor, a pharmacist.
You could be Pitbull in a nightclub.
You could be a psychologist. You could be a pastor for crying out loud.
No one is going to buy anything I sell them on a commercial.
Hey, I have a great.
I'm the guy you don't want to sit next to on the airplane.
Well,
no, if you had a turban.
That would be scary.
That's the irony is Al-Qaeda folks, they don't wear turbans. Sikhs wear turbans.
But we don't know that.
I know you don't.
We don't know that.
But I'm that guy, especially when I'm traveling alone.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
You dress too hip.
Are you kidding me? I get up to use the forward bathroom in an airplane, and I'm just waiting for someone to tackle me.
That's got to be a weird feeling. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I will tell you that I actually talked to a teenage boy the other day who used to go to Blanchard, well, still does, and he
Blanchard
says,
is our church, by the way. Or
Blanchard
my church.
is my church, too.
And, you know, most teenagers go through that stage where, like, I don't want to go to church anymore. And that's kind of where he is, where he just, you know, doesn't want to go to church anymore. But he goes, but have you ever heard Skye Jitani? I really like him. When he goes, when he's preaching, I go.
Well, they don't advertise when I'm preaching. So
Yeah,
how does he know?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, so I figured something out about pop music.
Really?
Yeah.
Was this
I didn't
at
even
the
know you
gym?
listened.
I just wanted to share this with you. It was not at the gym. It was in the car. And I was listening to NPR. And they have a show on WBEZ in Chicago, a music show where they talk about music to music.
Yeah. Sound Opinions.
Sound Opinions.
Yes.
I was listening to Sound Opinions on NPR, and they do special shows. Like this week, we're talking about our top 10 favorite this kind of song or this kind of music. And that week, it was breakup songs. It's like, here's our top 10 breakup songs, the songs that make us cry. And then it's like song
Adele
after
has to be
song.
on there,
Song after song after song. It's like, wow. Like, it struck me that this is a genre. This is like a classification of music. And then you look at someone like Taylor Swift, who basically made her career out of breakup songs. You know, that's what put her on the map, was she and I'm thinking, why is it's popular? So I'm thinking about breakup songs. Thinking, why are they so popular? They're so popular because it's a universal experience. We all break up with people. Everyone goes through this point of life where you are trying out relationships and they don't go well. But so many of these breakup songs are being sung by people in their 30s, in their 40s. Some people make whole careers seemingly.
That's because relationship breakups happen till the day we die.
That's the ultimate breakup.
That is the ultimate breakup.
But it didn't used to be that way. Breaking up
is hard to do.
Well, for one thing, typically, what struck me is how the period of your life where you're trying out different people serially is much longer than it used to be.
That's true.
You know,
and starts earlier. It starts earlier and ends later.
Or never ends at all.
Never ends
Some
at all.
people, just like George Clooney, just got engaged for the first time. How many different people has he dated?
Right.
1 million?
Probably not 1 million.
No, not 1 million. But it's funny that this genre of music exists because of cultural changes, in that now we spend so much time in what was a fairly brief, what we used to call courtship.
Yes.
Right.
You know, where it was like, it's time to go courting. I need to pick one of the girls in my circle, in my community, which if you were in small town America was a fairly small community. I need to pick one of these girls and I need to try to court her. And you would try. That's your flowers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what is that? Is that the caveman holding his club?
No.
Going up behind her to...
if you're listening to this, I'm holding my hand up because I have a bouquet of flowers. So you go and you sit in the parlor and you chat and you have tea. And then eventually you say, I'd like to marry you. And maybe she says yes, maybe she doesn't. But you've got there's maybe 4 or 5 years where you have to figure that out because you have to get on with life. You have to get on with life, and you need a wife if you're a guy, you need a husband if you're a girl, and because you're going to have a family, because you need a family, and then you say, okay, that's done.
You look at your limited options. You shoot for the moon.
You do the best you can.
You break up because it doesn't work.
You do the best you can,
and you settle for your second cousin.
And you you didn't grow up in Kentucky.
No, I didn't.
You don't know that. There was a time where you did the best you could, and then you were just fine with it. And you
settled.
Yes, well, you didn't expect it to be marvelous.
I think there's something else going on.
It's Walt Disney's fault.
No, it's not. It's not.
I think there's something else going on. I don't disagree with
Phil. Was it the 2 dogs kissing over the meatball, and that was set the expectation of marital
No, it was Cinderella and Snow White and...
Yeah.
You know.
So their princes came. Where's my prince?
I think actually Christian's closer to to the target, in my view. In my view. So I think here's what's going on. Actually, this relates to a graduation talk I have to give tomorrow.
What do you know? Where are you giving the commencement address, Skye?
At Taylor University.
Taylor University in
Upland, Indiana.
I've been there as well, yeah.
In the middle of a cornfield.
Yeah, I think it's indoors, though.
I meant the school.
The school is in the middle of a cornfield. So anyway, I think when we are dating people, what we're actually looking for is not a spouse or a partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We're actually looking for ourselves. And we're trying to find a person who completes our sense of identity. And I think what's going on is, as a culture, we have so lost a sense of identity formation that most people did that and kind of had a sense of their identity by their late teens, early 20s, 25, 30 for sure. And now, even when you look at commercials on television about retirement and people who are empty nesters, there's still this sense of, who are you? Where are you going? What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do now? What are you going to be? And so I think the serial testing of relationships and breaking up and multiple marriages and multiple on and on and on is because we don't ever come to peace with who we are, and we're looking for it in some external thing, whether it's a career or a car or a girlfriend, and so that has been reinforced, to be Marxist about this again, by a consumer culture that says always look for your identity in the next new thing. And we do that with relationships, and over time we realize, oh, this person doesn't really fit the identity I really want for myself anymore, therefore I'm going to break up and go for someone new.
Right.
That didn't used to exist in American culture.
Right. Do you think it's what's the difference between trying to fulfill your identity and just trying to be happy? And I'm not happy with you anymore.
Well, I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because happiness is about sense of identity and completion.
Right.
And when you don't do that for me anymore,
so when we started to believe that I must be happy, in my job, in my marriage, everywhere, I must be happy.
I have to go to Disney World.
Or I have to change
it. The happiest place on earth.
The happiest place. No, honestly, I really do think it comes from our culture, like the whole Disney phenomena, where it is, happiness is our God. And we have to be happy, and we have to have this wonderful dream, and we have to keep chasing it until we find it. And
I think we need to go back to arranged marriages.
I think it'd be great.
Where you just say, all right, you and you, trust us, you'll do fine.
There's communities that still do that.
It's not going to be that happy, but deal with it.
Well, I think the difference is
this is life.
In those times and in those cultures, marriage was not seen as a vehicle for personal fulfillment. Marriage was seen
survival.
It was economic, it was survival, it was how you preserve a family, it's how you make sure women are taken care of, and on and on and on. And so the primary interest in a family and an arranged marriage is not your happiness. It's the stability of the society and the family. That changed radically.
Which we don't care about anymore.
Right. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, post kind of the Civil War eras, when conceptions of marriage, children, all that changed dramatically in the United States. And we think it's always been this way.
Right.
But it hasn't been.
Well, my idea, and the reason I think arranged marriages would work is not necessarily for any of those reasons, but I have a 17-year-old son now who's in this dating time, and I know him.
And you know best.
No, I don't know best.
Mommy knows best.
I know him. I know how he's created. I know what his strengths.
What's that song from Tangled?
I don't know because I didn't watch Tangled.
Mommy knows best.
Mommy knows best. Yeah. Listen to your mother.
It was the evil mother.
Yeah.
So you know.
Okay.
And that's what we've turned it into. It's like if you have a parent who think they know better than you know yourself, they're sinister.
That's true. Right. And
self-actualization is the highest good.
But I will tell you, I also have a 24-year-old who tells the 17-year-old all the time, listen to mom. She knows what she's talking about, you know? And so he's figuring out, my mom kind of does know me, and she knows these other girls.
Does your 24-year-old want you to pick a mate for him?
He now comes to me and says, tell me what your gut is. Tell me what you think.
Okay, that's
Tell
good.
me, and it is good, but it took a lot of difficulty to get to that place.
Right. How many breakup songs did he have to go through?
Quite a few.
To get to the point.
Yeah.
But is there a way to change the culture on that? Because the TV and movies just carry us along, and the happy, happy, happy is your ultimate
Well, and I think, and the irony is that's the Duck Dynasty thing, right? Happy, happy, happy. Isn't that what
happy, that is true.
Happy, happy.
Yeah,
But the whole movement in our culture toward things like same-sex marriage, all of that stuff, people think, well, this is a theological issue or this is a legal issue. It's really, at its core, it's a continuation of the dominant American narrative that personal happiness and fulfillment is sacrosanct. And who are you to say, I can't do something that makes me feel fulfilled and happy? So the dominant view that many Christians hold of marriage and its purpose of self-fulfillment and happiness is the same narrative that's driving people to accept same-sex marriage. And right. I don't know. I don't think that dominant American narrative can be changed. I think the question that needs to be asked is within the context of the church community, how have we capitulated to that dominant American narrative, and what alternative narrative can we give, at least through the church?
Right.
And that's where the first battle has to be fought, rather than how do we change the whole culture.
So to recapture the Christian view of marriage, we should do arranged marriages through the church. Your elders should pick your spouse, or a Quaker, the advisory committee, when you go before the Quaker board and they answer your key life questions for you. Because that would stand as distinct to the culture.
Well, it is
right?
distinct to the
culture.
culture,
That would be profoundly countercultural to say, I'm actually, it's so not about happiness that we're putting everyone's names in a jar and I'm picking my spouse at random.
You're swinging from one extreme to the other.
I know,
yes, you are.
But it would get people's attention.
Well, and there are, again, communities in the United States that do it that way, primarily some immigrant communities that still recognize the older generation, the elders, the community should have a say in who you marry, and it's very difficult to go against their wishes. Yeah. That seems really foreign and odd to us as 21st century Americans, but there is some wisdom in it.
Well, and I think it comes back to us individually. You know, you can't change a whole culture without changing the individuals in it.
It's the man in the mirror, right?
I wouldn't have put it that way.
Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
He changed his man in the mirror all the time.
He did, into
a white woman.
Yeah, into Diana Ross,
right.
Into several other people.
Christian.
Okay, did you know that aliens are almost definitely out there?
I heard a lot of people say that.
Almost definitely.
What does almost definitely mean?
Almost definitely.
So not quite definitely, but
there.
almost.
Aliens almost definitely exist. At least that's what 2 astronomers told Congress this week. So this is like official testimony before Congress. We're explaining to Congress that aliens are almost definitely out there.
When they mean out there, they mean in the universe or like in the population?
They mean in Congress.
That would explain plenty.
Aliens are almost definitely in here, as they appeal.
And they don't mean illegal immigrants.
No, I don't think they believe that, because they were appealing for continued funding for the SETI project. They want SETI,
what is that?
Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
It's the cosmos.
We fund that?
Yes. Yeah. We fund giant antennas,
so
radio telescopes
to look for signals of life.
Didn't you ever see Jodie Foster in Cosmos?
Contact.
I did not.
Contact. Sorry, but it was
based on the book written by Carl Sagan,
who
made Cosmos. So the astronomers appearing before Congress said, in the last 50 years, evidence has steadily mounted that the components and conditions we believe necessary for life are common and perhaps, dare they say, ubiquitous in our galaxy. The possibility that life has arisen elsewhere and perhaps evolved intelligence is plausible and warrants scientific inquiry. Someone else, Mr. Shostak, that's an astronomer's name. Shostak. Yeah, he was in the old...
This kind of reminds me of Sleestack.
Like Sleestack. I was going to say that.
I was thinking
what was the name of that show?
The Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Not the new movies with Will Ferrell, the old one.
The chances of finding intelligent life are good, and if that happens, it will happen in the next 20 years, depending on the financing.
There's a catch.
Sounds like our podcast.
So is this coming because they're worried the government's cutting funding? Yeah. And so they have to make a case for don't cut our...
No, we are so close to almost definitely finding intelligent life.
Yeah, but I'm not sure we want to.
No, I think it would be a disaster.
What would happen? Why
they should fund a program to find intelligent life in Congress.
Well, first of all, if we...
Please tell me they didn't give them the money.
They probably will, because they've been doing this for 20, 30 years, funding these guys who are listening.
But let's,
just like, nope, I still don't hear anything.
They're playing Candy Crush the whole time, sitting out in the desert.
Nope, I still don't hear anything. Maybe tomorrow. They're like Cubs fans.
And so this is more...
That's what the SETI guys.
Being
like
a Cubs fan, that really hurts.
Well, come on. Hey, you've been looking for a World Series championship longer than they've been looking for intelligent life on Earth.
Oh, I can't deny that.
Okay, because I think they've only been going for like 30 years, and you're at 100 and what?
Yeah, well, whatever. 101.
You're a Chicagoan too.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care if the Cubs win.
I go like, every month.
My wife likes the White Sox, and I just dislike baseball.
I don't like baseball either.
It's boring, I have to say. The only reason I'm into it is because it's the Cubs, and I love going to Wrigley Field.
I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame last year.
You guys are so off of my topic that I'm considering not inviting you back next week.
He brought up the Cubs.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it was an illustration on my story, which is that aliens are almost definitely out there. Here's why this annoys me, because there's so many presumptions in this, because it assumes that they're doing math and saying, all right, there's a gajillion galaxies, so there are gajillion planets, and there's got to be some subset of a gajillion that are Earth-ish, so therefore there must be life. That's assuming that we know how life starts, which we have no clue. We have zero. No one has right now. We had a clue. We thought we had a clue in the 50s. We realized that the clue we thought we had in the 50s was wrong. Currently, there is no theory for how life started. In fact,
there are theories.
No, there aren't, actually. Richard Dawkins said, in fact, it's probably something that's not even worth researching anymore because it's too implausible to figure out. There are currently no theories about it.
Well, the theory is that either God made it, or the theory is that the Big Bang happened. Those are the theories.
Big Bangs don't make life.
They make the universe. But they
Big Bangs make universes.
What is it that happened on the Earth that actually created the first life forms?
Yeah,
I am sure there are
but
theories.
But that's the alien theory, right? That they sent some probe here with some bacteria.
Well, that doesn't explain life in the universe. That explains life on Earth.
Yes, but how do we know they didn't send bacteria to other Earth-like planets?
The aliens?
Yeah.
Well, where did they start?
Don't ask questions.
Where did they come from? Where did they come from? Richard Dawkins, I'm quoting famous atheists now. So I'm not quoting Ken Ham. I'm quoting famous atheists. Says there are 3 events in evolutionary history that defy explanation, probability. The probabilities are so small. The first is the appearance of life, of the first simple cell. The second is the appearance of the first complex cell.
And then the Cambrian explosion?
Although that's another one that's hard to explain. The next one is the appearance...
What is the Cambrian explosion?
The next one, it's when
That's when my microwave exploded on my kitchen counter.
Mr. Cambria blew up. The next one is the appearance of consciousness.
Right.
That these 3 things are really so improbable, we don't.
Well, they're
really
probable
know.
Because they actually happened.
But how?
They happened. Them happening spontaneously through Darwinian means is highly improbable.
But the improbability has not pushed him to the point of even being agnostic on the question of God.
Of course not.
Right.
There's got to be a natural explanation because we start. So here's my problem with these guys sitting in Congress saying there's very definitely possibly alien life out there, and I'll find it if you give me 20 years of funding.
Let's call them what they are.
I will deliver the head of an alien on a platter.
Call them what they are. They are very educated and sophisticated beggars.
Well, everyone in science is.
Right.
That's how science is funded.
Academia.
I think they're hopeless romantics. I think they're like people who read romance novels. They're so attached to this outcome.
But are we happy that they exist, that these people are out there who really want to find out if there's alien life? I mean, would it be okay if nobody was doing this?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, there's no benefit from it, and it costs money.
How do you know there's no benefit?
Well, what are the possible outcomes? You discover there's intelligence in the universe, and it comes and kills you to take your stuff.
You've been watching too many movies.
That's the most, when has one civilization bumped into another one and the outcome has been good? Ever.
That's not fair.
That's your data set. There is no other data set.
One civilization bumps into another and the outcome has been good.
Yeah. Other than like say an individual, a missionary, someone or
You're saying like the Americans, or the Europeans.
Gulliver's
go
Travels.
I don't think that's true. And they tied him up.
But it ended good. They all became friends.
Well,
yeah, and that's fictitious. That's a fiction. Okay, how many Native Americans go to our church?
We don't know.
You may have a percentage of that.
Like
I don't know.
0.1.
I have Native American in me, and you would never know that.
And yet we live in Illinois, which was named after the Illini Indian tribe. We killed them all.
Okay,
It didn't end well. It never ends well. It ends in wars.
He's such a pessimist.
Well, he likes to speak in big, huge, gigantic generalities, in case you haven't noticed.
What?
Elon Musk. You know who he is?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I don't.
He's the guy. He started SpaceX, the first successful.
It's amazing what you guys know that I do not.
He's like an entrepreneur that started a whole bunch of
He's the model for.
I do know Tesla.
He's the model for Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Iron Man. For Tony Stark. He's
I know
the
that.
model for that character. He says we should give up on manned space travel.
Elon Musk sounds like a cologne.
And this is a guy who's all about.
Well, it truly...
we shouldn't try to send men to Mars. It's ridiculously expensive, and there isn't really a scientific benefit.
Well, and the thing is, the reason
guy.
we keep doing that is because we are hoping, in happiness and a dream, and maybe there's something more that we don't have
I
yet.
think there's more Disney in us wanting to find aliens than there is science.
We've talked about this before, that in the 20th century, what fueled a lot of the space exploration, space race, all that, was really the competition with the Soviet Union.
Right.
And
it's the fact that you see a thing right there that close, and you want to be like, well, what's up there? I mean, that's just human nature.
Yeah, but at some point
and then you hear somebody else is trying to do that, and you're like, hey, let's beat them.
At some point you go, though, it's going to be really expensive to go find out what that is, and these people over here need something to eat.
Right.
Well,
they're starving, or we could get a rock from Mars.
Right. Well, you will get no argument from me. I think we need to figure out what to do about Social Security and the welfare state in the United States.
The point being,
what is your point?
You can't do a statistical analysis on the likelihood of life developing elsewhere when you have no idea how life develops. You have to have a model to do statistical analysis. So the statement, aliens are almost definitely out there, is fundamentally false.
Well, it's a confirmation bias. Right? They want there to be life.
It's a philosophical statement.
Right. So when are you testifying before Congress?
I was going to say the same thing. Can we send you to Congress?
I think you should run for Congress.
Maybe we should send this podcast into Congress.
Phil Vischer for Congress. If any state needs Phil Vischer to represent it in Congress, it's Illinois.
It would kill him. He couldn't take that for 5 seconds.
Are there meetings?
You are the antithesis of a politician.
Do you have to talk to people?
Yeah, see, this is not
so that's not working.
It would never work.
How about Buck Denver? Could I do it like with one of my characters?
Well, Al Franken is a senator.
He's a character. Yeah, I think he's an extrovert, though. Are there introverts in Congress?
Apparently, Barack Obama is an introvert, and that's been part of his problem as president.
Really?
Yeah, I've read stories. I've heard stories. Oh. Also, I've seen him work a room, though, and you can...
But you know what? My husband's the same way. Yeah. He is an introvert, but yet he masquerades as an extrovert. Mm-hmm. It is possible. That is not you.
You can pretend. You can pretend. There was a new study. Did you hear about the new study?
No.
Can't wait.
Lay it on us.
Actually, I think you sent it to me.
All right, then
I guess you have heard about it.
Okay, new study on religious retention rates. This is interesting.
Oh,
speaking of people losing
your diet,
losing or gaining their faith or belief. See, and I think SETI, those guys should be defined as a faith community, and then we should study them just like we study, who are searching for extraterrestrial life, who maintain that there's aliens out there, and it's only a matter of time till we're having tea together.
Well, there are those kind of religious cults. Right?
Yeah, there are. So this is a study. Percentage of those raised in a faith group who remain affiliated with that faith as an adult.
All right.
And they studied
What'd they find?
Like 20 different faith groups. Do you know the highest retention? If you are raised in this faith, you are 84% likely to remain as an adult.
Catholic.
I do know what it is because I saw the study.
Is it Catholic?
No.
Hindu.
Now, this is in the United States. They're talking about the United States.
U.S. religious retention rates in the U.S. Why do you think that is? You have some experience with the Hindu faith.
A little bit. I mean, I wasn't raised in it per se.
I mean, but
I was raised around it.
Yeah, right, which is closer than I got.
That's true.
Yeah. I saw a Hindu on TV once.
Yeah, you've been to an Indian restaurant. That's about as close as you get.
Yeah. Why do you think their retention? Okay, the second highest. What's the second highest?
Catholics.
Jewish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, interesting. 76% of kids raised in Judaism will still identify as Jews.
Yeah, they'll identify as Jews. You know, race-wise, not necessarily. Yes, nominally, not necessarily religion.
Hindu. Why do you think it's so sticky?
Well, what's number 3 first?
Muslim. Yeah.
Wow.
And here's
76%.
Here's what I think is common about those top tier retention.
Well, wait a second.
people.
Keep going. Read like the top 5.
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
Well, the next one is Greek Orthodox.
Okay.
So the first Christians that show up are kind of the most, distinct, ethnically distinct, culturally distinct.
And that's the issue here.
Culture.
Is being a Hindu means you're probably South Asian, Indian, or Pakistani. Being Jewish is a cultural identity, not just a faith identity. Muslim, same thing. Greek Orthodox is very much a cultural identity. So I think what these things have in common is they're not just a set of doctrines. They are a culture. They are a way of life. They are a comprehensive identity that if you leave Hinduism or if you leave Islam, you're not just exchanging one set of doctrines for another. You are abandoning your entire community and identity.
Right.
And
Right.
we can get down the list.
So number 5.
Number 5.
What do you think number 5 is?
Catholics.
You've said that every time.
I know. Well, it's going to come up eventually.
Mormon.
You'd be lots of funds in Vegas.
Mormon, and that makes sense because Mormon is somewhat, Hinduish, very cultural. Very. Number 6.
Catholics.
You are correct. Ding,
I
ding,
told you.
ding, ding, ding.
I hit it eventually.
Catholic is number 6.
But again, I would venture to say that's also a cultural thing.
And now number 7, 8, and 9 are all Protestant denominations.
But I bet you they're the mainline ones.
Well, not the top one, Baptist.
That's the mainline one.
But what's the actual
In
percentage?
my world.
That's not mainline.
What's the actual percentage?
Wait a second. Hold on a minute.
Whoa, hold on.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on. Why?
Define mainline to her.
A Baptist church is like the mainline church.
Well, it depends what kind of Baptist.
Southern Baptist, of
Well,
course.
Southern Baptist is different than Baptist.
What? What you talking about, Willis?
There's American Baptist. There's Southern Baptist.
There's Northern and Southern.
There's
That's it.
Northern
no,
Baptist.
but there's American Baptist is much more mainline. Southern Baptist is definitely not mainline.
Southern Baptist is the mainline denomination.
Mainline
means
liberal.
Older, liberal, progressive.
Right.
Well, they came along after
mainline
the
is
true Baptists.
Lutherans are mainline.
Methodists.
Methodists are mainline.
Episcopalian.
Congregationalists.
A lot of Presbyterians.
In my book, mainline means
we don't get to define terms
based on my frame of reference.
In Christian's dictionary.
In my world.
The contrast from the reaction against mainline initially was because mainline denominations were becoming so liberal and taking a lower view of Scripture was fundamentalism. Fundamentalism was, whoa, we don't like you liberals. We're holding on to the fundamentals. Evangelicalism was the reaction against both and the polar opposites, and like we want a middle ground, and that's what Billy Graham did when he started Christianity Today in the 50s. So Southern Baptists are actually closer to the fundamentalist end of things than the mainline end of things. Get it?
I do get it. I just think
Although more Southern Baptist churches today would be more evangelical,
True.
Especially the bigger ones.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
depends on how you define your terms.
Mainline is not a reference to
mainstream.
Centrality.
It's not the same as mainstream.
Right,
oh, okay. Well, I was, I guess, equating it
Southern
with
Baptists are the largest denomination in the country, so by sheer numbers, it is the center. But
that was my point.
But theologically,
Thank you for
mainline is a theological designator. Mainline references
Southern
historic
Baptist
denominations
is
that
a
are
way of
more
life.
liberal.
It is.
Yeah. So okay. So
Which I love.
So Catholics, then Baptists, then Lutherans, then Pentecostals. That's interesting, Lutheran, because it's regional. It's very regional.
Yeah.
It's Minnesota, Wisconsin. It's
Pennsylvania.
Germans.
Well, and what numbers are we talking about here? What percentage?
Pentecostal hits 50%.
So half of people raised in that tradition don't stay with it as adults.
Right. And I think and then you go on, and then actually you hit Buddhists. After the Pentecostals are Buddhists. People don't stay Buddhist very much.
Isn't that the same kind of cultural as Hindu?
Not exactly. It's a little different.
So you've got a huge bunch in, basically all the Protestant denominations are in the middle. And I think they're all in the middle because it's very easy to jump from one Protestant denomination. So this isn't saying, you know, you started out as a Baptist and then you became an atheist or a Hindu. This is saying you no longer identify as a Baptist, which means you might now be a Methodist.
Which is quite frankly my situation. I mean, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, but I don't.
Because another category is non-denominational Protestant,
fit,
which is where a lot of Southern Baptists or even Lutherans go if they move to the suburbs and they go to the megachurch next door. Now you're non-denominational. Then you go on down to Reformed, Presbyterian. Only 41% of Presbyterian kids stay Presbyterian. Then you go to the nuns, who have no affiliation. Now that's kind of interesting. If you have no religious affiliation, only 38% of your kids also have no religious affiliation.
I bet that's changing.
72, well, there are no slopes in this study, so I don't know. Then Jehovah's Witnesses, even less than the nuns. Then Congregationalists and Holiness Movement folks. And then at the very bottom, only if you raise your kids in this faith tradition, only 30% of your kids will remain in it. What is it? This is the story that people have found fascinating.
Atheism.
Yes. Good job.
Thanks.
They have the lowest retention rates.
I got Catholics out of the way early.
And I think the hypothesis holds because atheism, unlike, say, Hinduism or Islam or Judaism, atheism has no culture.
Right.
You know, there's no.
Right.
Well, there's no. Well, that's you're right. Yeah, because they're trying.
But it takes a long time.
They're trying to create these Sunday assemblies, and they're trying to create music and all that. But they don't have a culture that keeps people grounded in a sense of identity. So it's very easy to abandon atheism.
Right. So here's a couple of reasons why that's probably true. Because it would be easy to celebrate that and say, ha 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 ha, you atheists, your kids don't even like your beliefs. But I'm not going to do that, even though I just did that. That was for entertainment purposes only. That was not actually me doing that.
You realize that's a disclaimer we could use for a lot of things.
I know. I know.
I didn't really mean that. That was just for entertainment purposes.
I only
That's our
said
entire
that.
show.
Hello, Donald Sterling.
Well, I mean, that's Stephen Colbert. Everything he says is for entertainment purpose because he's hide behind the character. That's what the character is for.
Yeah, but that's going to change when he goes to the Late Show.
No, that's exciting.
I know.
So I don't know that we should like celebrate this as atheism doesn't work because kids don't find it appealing, partly because of the cultural thing, because there's just, it's not a sticky culture, but also because a lot of the atheist parents I've met don't try to
indoctrinate their kids.
Yes, they are free thinkers first. And so they want their kids to be free thinkers. So they let them, like, whatever you want to do. If you want to go to the Baptist church down the street, I'll drive you. So, and you won't find that among Baptist parents. Say, whatever you want to do. If you don't want to go to church, fine. I'll drive you to the Sunday assembly and you can be an atheist. The Baptist, we don't do that.
Well, you know, one group that's not in your study, it doesn't sound like, are the agnostics. And I would think that, you know, if you're raised as a hardcore atheist, it probably is a lot easier to move to the whole agnostic thing than it is to really ditch the atheism altogether.
Probably, yeah. I don't know how they would measure that
Maybe
separately.
it's incorporated in the nuns.
Could be in the nuns.
People who just don't know.
Are nuns in the nuns?
Probably not.
N-U-N?
They're in the Catholics.
And how do you know what you're talking about? So that's interesting. So do we...
So what do we do with this study?
It would be nice to know, yeah, thank you, Christian. That's a good question. It would be nice to know from these different groups, when kids where do they typically go? You know, so
well, I think
Jewish
we actually
kids
do know that from some other studies.
We do?
This is something you could have Drew Dick back on for.
Really? He knows?
Well, he wrote about this in his Generation X Christian book. Well, and the statistics coming out of different places like Barna, Gallup, others, has been consistent over the last couple of years that as religious affiliations fluctuate over time, the one group that is consistently growing larger and larger and larger are the nuns. So when you're seeing numbers shrink in one category and they are consistently growing in another, you can make the conclusion that people are leaving their faith tradition and primarily ending up in the nuns bucket.
But they're not. The nuns aren't growing fast enough to account.
They don't account for all of it.
No.
But they do account for
a gazillion. I mean, what this tells us is that probably half of people in America change religious affiliation from childhood to adulthood.
Yes.
My biggest question would be how much of that is just in between Protestant Christian denominations.
I bet there's a lot of that.
Because I bet it's the majority of that, because nuns aren't growing that fast and Hindus aren't growing that fast.
Well, and I think it's growing to the place where people are, you know, swinging to the atheists as well. I mean,
but that's not growing that fast.
It's not. How do we know how fast it's growing?
Because we study it every year. There's like 28, as of this year, 28% of the nuns are atheist or agnostic, which is interesting because it means, you know, 72% of the nuns believe in God or gods, you know, are spiritual. And that's up from like 23%, you know, 4 or 5 years ago.
But they're not affiliating with a particular faith community.
Right. There's a lot there. The nuns, sometimes the nuns are used falsely to say, you know, atheism is exploding.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Non-religious affiliation or lack of religious affiliation is growing rapidly,
which means
faster than atheism.
People are not interested in being a part of a church.
Right. I'm spiritual, and I do yoga, and I get acupuncture, and I pray sometimes. And I went and saw Heaven is for Real.
Or you know, I am a believer. I believe that God exists, and I have a relationship with Christ, but I just can't make church work. I'm hearing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more research to really diagnose categories within the nuns. Because I think I've encountered a lot of that too, a lot of that actually around the country of people who say, I am committed to Christian faith, I just can't handle church anymore.
Right.
And that's leading.
I'm kind of like that close myself, to be quite honest.
But does that make you a nun? The question is, does that put you into the nun bucket?
In some of these surveys, it does. It puts you in the nun bucket, even though, that's what I mean, there needs to be a more careful exploration of who's really in the nuns and what do they believe.
Right.
I wonder where our listeners fall.
Listeners, where do you fall?
How would you categorize?
Are you a nun? Are you a Jehovah's Witness? Are you a holiness?
And did you change from when you were...
It's the holiness movement. Well, what is holiness? That's not a denomination.
Well, I think there are denominations that are affiliated with it.
With?
The holiness movement.
Okay.
Right.
What denominations? Like Church of Christ?
Yeah.
Is it some
of
okay.
that.
We need like a denominational expert to bring us a big wall chart of denominations so we can track it.
Yeah.
Do you know? There's got to be someone at Wheaton College.
I do know some people who could probably do that.
Okay, we have time for something short. We have a few more minutes. You just blogged. You just said that on your blog that sermons should be shorter. Didn't you, Skye?
I made a case for shorter sermons.
You said sermons are too long.
I didn't say that.
What did you say?
I said most of my sermons could benefit from a nip or a tuck.
Or liposuction?
Right.
But everyone else's are fine?
I was speaking for myself.
Okay. I guess there's no story here at all.
No, I think
Skye just thinks he's too talkative.
No, I do think our sermons in general, at least in my exposure, tradition of the church, places I go to, tend to be longer than they need to be.
Do you think that is because we have changed as audience members in that our attention spans are shorter? Or, as my husband says, they repeat themselves several times and I got the message in the first 10.
I think a message should be as long as
I guess I shouldn't have said that.
No.
It's
I agree. I think a message should only be as long as it needs to be. And if you
But that messes up the whole sermon, the service planning.
Exactly. And I talk about this in the articles. For example, at my church, we typically allot 30 minutes for a sermon.
Right.
And in my preparation, in my study, in my writing of a sermon, what if I only have...
You only have 5 pounds of flour and you got a 10-pound bag.
Exactly. What do you do? And I said, well, that's when you got to fill it with all kinds of bits and pieces of fluff. You know, the cute story about the kids, the great poem, the little quote from C.S. Lewis. You fill it all up. You repeat yourself 10 times. And it's like a hot dog filled with all kinds of ambiguous parts that you have to stuff between the sentimental buns of music that's in a service.
I think you should plan for 30 minutes, and if it goes 10,
I don't want to hear you ever say sentimental buns again. I'm not
and then everybody would walk away happy.
Well, yeah, my point was I think too many pastors believe that the majority of spiritual formation happens through the work of the sermon, and that's expecting way too much from the sermon.
Right.
And then secondly, we think the sermon is primarily to teach, and it's anyone who's studied teaching theory knows that lecturing for 30, 40, 50 minutes is a horrible way to teach.
Right.
So I looked at the Gettysburg Address as an example, where Abraham Lincoln only spoke for 2.5 minutes. And it's the most memorable speech in American history. The guy who spoke right before him, who was the keynote speaker that day in Gettysburg, spoke for 2.5 hours.
Oh, my word.
Boy, does he feel stupid
really.
in hindsight.
And so no one remembers his speech. No one even remembers his name. The point is...
Well, he wasn't president either.
Yeah,
but if everyone had come, got all dressed up, came out, and Lincoln speaks for 2.5 minutes, and then it's over, they all want their money back.
Yeah. Well, that's
like
true.
I got ripped off.
There is an expectation, and I think
Not with a speech like he gave.
Well,
Their hearts would be moved.
I guess.
And they would be stunned
what's
into
next?
silence.
I think the challenge is when we sit down as leaders to think about our worship services and all the different components to them, whether it's music, sacrament, preaching, you need to ask what serves our purposes best here. And in this case, maybe a 15-minute message is fine. Maybe a 30-minute message is called for. But to make it a formula that says you have to do 30, 40, whatever minutes it is every time, I think that gets pretty wooden and
So how
unhelpful.
would, from your experience working in a church, how could the people who have to plan the service flex, to let that happen? Because generally people just want to know, we sing 3 songs, we do announcements, we sing 2 songs, we do an offering, we have the slot for the sermon, we wrap it up with a song, and then we end at 10 so that the next group can come in and we can have our second service.
Yeah, I understand that it is a sort of like an assembly line, and it gets messy when you start screwing around with it from week to week. I think it begins, though, with the pastors and preachers out there coming to some clarity about what the point of preaching is.
Right. Isn't it more important that our services are predictable than that they are really moving or educational in any way?
In some systems, that probably is the dominant value.
No.
That it's predictable and replicable.
You know what? It's like McDonald's. It's not the best food in the world. Okay, I said it.
I actually make that comparison
McDonald's,
in my post.
It's good. It is. I've had better food.
Well,
I'm in a town, an unfamiliar place. I know that I can count on McDonald's to be reliably mediocre in a predictable manner, and that's what I want from church.
That's exactly actually what's happening to church in America, is we are franchising the church. McDonald's used to have an unofficial motto, which is one world, one taste.
Oh, gosh.
Meaning
really?
Yeah.
That is so inspiring.
Anywhere you go in the world and there's a McDonald's, you know what you're going to get. You know what the fries are going to taste like. You know what the meat's going to be.
Kind of crappy.
There is a movement afoot in America to franchise the church, where and I won't name specific congregations or churches, but you probably know what they are, where a church will franchise itself into different cities and towns, and then when you walk into that church, that brand church in California, you're going to hear the exact same pastor that you would have heard in Chicago or in New York, because they're beaming the sermon, and the music will be the same, and it's the local pastors are really just franchisees who manage that branch of the church.
But that's different than just, why do we need the sermon to be 30 minutes every time?
Well, I think that's an extreme version of what happens even in a local level, which is we have to produce this every week. And it's easier for us to have a predictable formula rather than actually prayerfully discerning what's going to be most formative for our people.
It's like producing television. You can't just make random length shows, because you can't put together a schedule. It messes everything up. So the shows have to be 22 minutes long or 40, only on Netflix. I mean, not for the networks as much, because they still need to sell this amount of commercials and have a schedule that lines up to hours.
And that's my point, is right now, for example, at my church, it's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We have a 30-minute slot for sermons. And I'm simply arguing that if we need predictability, I think a good case can be made that we don't need 30 minutes for sermons.
Right.
Maybe we only need 20.
So if we're not attempting to do the heavy lifting in the sermon, where are we doing the heavy lifting?
Yes, it has to happen somewhere. Teaching is really, really important.
Yeah.
Jesus tells us to go and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded. But the question then becomes, is where does teaching happen best? And it happens best in the context of relationships, where people know the context of your life and what's going on. It happens in smaller groups and settings where there's interaction and dialogue rather than just passively listening to a lecturer for half an hour. And by that I mean teaching not just the retention of knowledge, but the actual change of behaviors and skills to live life differently. It can't just happen by sitting in a sermon. And we know people who've sat under great Bible teaching for decades and are complete tchotchballs anyway, right? They don't transform.
I'm sorry, they're what?
Well, what's a tchotchball?
I think we know.
I think that's a Hindu term.
So I think we expect way too much from the sermon, and that's why we try to give it so much time in our services.
Yeah.
Because we think it's a one-hit wonder that it's going to transform people just by sitting under my teaching.
So we need more small groups or more adult Sunday school classes or more men's retreats?
We need a lot of things.
Spiritual discipleship.
But I don't think what we need more of is time in the service for the sermon.
You know, you are always out there pushing the envelope, aren't you, Skye?
Yeah.
That's why he no longer works at a church.
There's truth to that.
Do you watch your sermons, short or long? How much time do you spend singing worship songs when you really want to go home and have dinner and watch the football game on TV? Can you learn in a small group or in a Sunday school class? Is it too hard to remember what your pastor said so fast? Or would you just like to go home and listen to Tim Keller on a podcast on your iPod while you're watching TV? How do you learn? And if you don't want to, in hell burn.
Wow.
I think every song I sing should end with "In Hell Burn" from now on for at least the next 4 or 5 weeks.
I think just one time,
yeah,
you ought to sing one of these songs in your real good voice.
That is my real.
I think that was an insult.
I heard you singing before we came in, and it was
I don't know what I was singing.
You were singing.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Awfully awesome.
He was singing from Phantom of the Opera.
I know.
It was, I think, Music of the Night.
We're out of time.
He can really sing.
I don't know what she's.
He can really sing.
Thanks for coming, everybody. See you next week. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Bye.